Good morning. Thank you for joining us once again. My name is Martin Yan. I'm the NetSuite Practice Manager here at FMT Consultants, and we're going to be talking about how NetSuite manufacturing is your unfair advantage for your business. So a couple of housekeeping notes. If you have any questions during the presentation or have any difficulties, please enter your comments into the chat box, and our moderator here will assist me with those questions. We'll address the questions at the end of the presentation. We have a lot of material to cover here in roughly 55 minutes, so let's go ahead and get started. So let's start by talking first about challenges brought to us by our clients. And we're going to talk about those challenges which are actually brought to us by real clients. Through our years of experience here at FMT Consultants with clients that are doing manufacturing, these are some of the things that they bring to us and say, this is really challenging with our system. So maintaining bill of materials, always a challenge. Even with those simple bill of materials, there's changes. A lot of people need to see that information. So always a challenge there. Raw material requirements, starting with those work orders, those manufacturing orders. How much material do I need? When do I need that material? How do I plan properly for that material needs? And then how about ordering those materials? You got a lot of cut and pasting maybe to do. How do you deal with those challenges? Certainly one of our clients will tell us, yeah, I cut and paste from my engineering system, paste it into a purchase order in QuickBooks, place those orders, and really a challenge. Maybe over order, under order, lots of challenges related to that. As your business grows, another challenge that comes up is managing those multiple locations. It may be as simple as the idea of your warehouse is too full and you've got the self-storage down the street is holding your overflow inventory, or maybe you've got a suite next door, or another location across the country. But how do you manage those multiple locations of inventory? Another challenge is the accurate cost of your finished goods. How do you ensure that truly I am properly rolling up all my costs and accurately computing those numbers? Next one is labor and overhead. If you're doing manufacturing in-house, one of your largest costs is your labor, your workforce. So need to take that into account. If you have significant manufacturing infrastructure, you'd also need to consider your overhead or machine costs as well. And then costing methods. If you're on a QuickBooks solution, you're fairly limited in what you can do with costing. So one of the challenges brought to us is how do I get to really a standard cost model, because that makes the most sense for my manufacturing situation. And then managing a contract manufacturer. In today's business world, it's expensive in many cases to manufacture here in the United States. So you're going to outsource that to India, China, Mexico. In either place you send that, you're going to need to consider of how do I manage that situation of making sure I have the right materials there at the right time, give them the right instructions on what to build at the right time, and then send their purchase orders to them as well for their services. And lastly, and this is not just for clients who are doing manufacturing, but generally most businesses here have this, I need one source of truth. Such a key important factor to running your business. Be able to look at one system, see the information, and trust that information. So we're going to take a quick look at NetSuite in general as a baseline here first. So just considering some of the high-level benefits of deploying NetSuite. So if we go in and look at business managers and talk to them about, here's some good reasons why you should think about deploying NetSuite. Actionable insights. So this is based on a survey of actual NetSuite customers. So they had a 56% increase in the actionable insights they could make with their business. And then gross margin, an increase of 1 to 5% in gross margin. And you may know your business's gross margin, but a 5% increase in gross margin is huge. Inventory cost, 30% reduction in inventory cost. Be able to see where that inventory is, plan properly. Wow, that's a great improvement. And then looking at IT support costs. Given that NetSuite is fully cloud, it takes away that server, that client-server architecture, reduces that IT infrastructure from a backup, a redundancy, disaster recovery, eliminates all of that by moving to the cloud. So if you've been in business for any amount of time, you know that having a great product is really not enough to succeed. So one of the fun examples I found out there, kind of the Razr phone. And if you take a close look at this, this is actually a product that was developed, didn't really go very far, because I don't think anyone's ever seen one of these in person, is a phone, a cell phone with an actual Razr attached to it. So not the Motorola Razr, but an interesting knockoff kind of design to actually build a Razr into a phone. I can't imagine where that would go, but it sounds cool. And how about the cat translator? I've never seen one again, but it sounds pretty cool. If I knew what my cat was going to say, not really a cat person myself, but it sounds pretty wild. But that great product, are you going to succeed with that? A lot of challenges to running a business. So let's take a look at NetSuite's help with solving that for you. So NetSuite's going to give you a single solution for that, to really manage your business with a single solution. So I like to state this because it's true. NetSuite's the #1 cloud ERP solution. It was built from the ground up as a cloud solution for you, and it's really just grown by leaps and bounds over the course of its history. So with that in mind, we start with some core business functionality in NetSuite. One of the key things for any business is customers. Next one, their order management, looking at we need to be able to deliver. And then of course we need financial management. We've got to be able to report on the books, get those invoices out, and consider revenue. If we add on top of that the other ERP components like your warehouse management, inventory management, and certainly what we're talking about today, the manufacturing capability, as well as the supply chain capability that feeds into that manufacturing, and the solution is not complete yet. Let's look at services resource planning from a perspective if you do projects or have resources you need to manage from a project perspective. Layer that on top of that, and you're really developing that complete solution. Now when you consider the personnel in your organization, they can all have visibility into all this data, from the CEO, CFO, your shipping manager, your salespeople, your consultants, professional services folks. And then we've seen businesses continue and want to say, how do you expand this information and give access to people outside your organization? So vendors, customers, partners, allow them access to that system as well. And this is all part of NetSuite functionality. So it gives you that unified system used by 24,000 plus organizations and across 150 countries worldwide. So next thing, if we think about, well, I put a new system in, I need to make sure I have a system that I can use and that my team will use. We need that user acceptance. You need an easy system to use and something that the users will embrace. So one of the things to consider is user interface. So John Gruber is known for his design of very good user interfaces for software applications. So if your UI even vaguely resembles an airplane cockpit, you're doing it wrong. If you have so many buttons and widgets on your screens, it's not going to work. And then the other thing is really you need everybody, no matter what device they're using, where they're coming from, whether it's Mac, PC, laptop, tablet, personal cell phone, that they can access the system, embrace it, that really are saying, yeah, I'm in. So with NetSuite, it's designed for modern business. So it's easy to learn, easy to use. So just looking at a homepage, sample homepage here with some KPIs that we can see very easily. We see what's going up. Cases are going up. It's bad. I'm showing it in red. My receivables, yeah, my receivables are up. I'm generating more revenue on the sales side. And then you've got easy ways to query information, show lists of data, export that data out, really get quick views of the information. And then, of course, accessible on any device at any time. Key information to be able to run your business. If you're a small business, you know, you're on the move a lot, you need to be able to see that information anytime, any place. So what about the idea that your business is different? So every one of the people attending this presentation today likely have a different type of business. No one's selling the exact same products. No one has the exact same business processes. Everybody's got their own little niche or their own little difference in how they need to run their business. So NetSuite's got flexibility there. So one of the fun things to talk about is the idea of, you know, NetSuite is easily configured and customized by mere mortals, you know, and you've got no version lock. So you don't need to get a team of developers in there to do a simple thing like add a new field or build a workflow for you. So from an end user perspective, we can look at each end user has the ability to personalize their own dashboard and build custom searches. So they can have a dashboard that really is suited to what they need to perform on a daily basis, what they need to monitor, as well as the ability to develop their own custom searches. And I think develop is probably a little bit strong of a word there, but build their own custom searches to report on data that they need to see. From a business analyst perspective, and for the smaller businesses, really this is your power user. Ability to develop custom reports, add custom fields, custom forms, and even expand a little further in custom records. Maybe you've got a different piece of data that you need to store within the system and you need to create a custom record for that. Very easy to perform those sort of customizations within the system. And then custom workflows to do simple things such as automatically send customer statements out or send notifications when certain activities take place. And then when we get to the more advanced capabilities within the system, there are suite apps which can be downloaded and installed in your NetSuite instance, as well as build integrations from external systems. You have web services capability available, and then custom coding. We have extensive scripting ability within NetSuite to do custom functionality, and our team here has worked with many clients over the course of many years to be able to develop those sort of customizations to further automate business processes beyond what can be accomplished with your standard workflows and functionality. So what about reporting? One of the key things for any ERP systems is what can I do with reporting, what's available, how do I get the data out? So really we like to consider it is business intelligence for all, and you're running your business in real time. There's not the scenario of I create transactions, I ship orders, and they sit in a batch, and I can't see that batch until someone in finance gets to the end of the month and posts the batch, so I can't see any data. This is real-time information. When I ship an order, that's going to show up in my reporting, in my financials. And every user gets their own key actionable metrics. We talked about the idea of a personalized homepage. That's what can be done. So here's an example of just a financial systems role. So financials person is going to look at receivables, payables, how's our orders tracking, as well as handfuls of other metrics, and can see them very easily. And again, these metrics carry over onto your mobile device as well. So what about selling online? Businesses today, I need to sell online. How do I accomplish that? Certainly there's lots of e-commerce platforms out there, but NetSuite's really commerce ready. So we've talked about the layers in the middle of our core business, our ERP. Outside that, now we can overlay the ability for online sales, both business to business and business to consumer, as well as mobile shopping, responsive design store, and point of sale as well capabilities within the NetSuite platform. So really gives you that ability to have a 360 view of the customer. and really no matter what channel they come in from, you can see them in one place, and again, one place in real time. So what about the fact that you've got 3 shifts maybe in 3 different parts of the world? How do I deal with that? Wow, that sounds like a challenge if you've got an on-premise system. You've got VPNs, infrastructure, so on and so forth. To manage that, maybe multiple shifts of IT folks. So from a NetSuite perspective, like I say, it just works. It's secure, it's reliable. We got world-class security. They have multiple data centers across the country as well as in Europe, and uptime percentage here at any point in time you can go in and look and see NetSuite, what's the reliability, how's it doing, are there any open issues, was any services impaired, and great uptime and reliability in the platform. They really know how to keep it running. So that's NetSuite, the NetSuite side of things in general. But let's focus now in on some of those manufacturing challenges. So, we started talking about some of those up front, kind of the challenges that were brought to us by our clients, our real clients, over the course of doing business with them, for the past 20 years. And we're going to talk about those challenges and how they fit into NetSuite functionality. So first, let's talk about maintaining bill of materials. So, how do you do that? So this may look familiar from your business. This might be an engineering manager's desk, and somewhere on that desk there's a piece of paper that has the latest revision of the bill of materials we need to design, or maybe those post-it notes on the monitor give me some additional detail. It's not surprising that we have clients that are in this spot today. Next, you may have said, well, let's throw it in a system somewhere and store it digitally. Well, great. How can you find it? It's somewhere in the ones and zeros out there. Let's figure it out. Maybe you've taken a real investment in getting organized, and you're running Office 365, and you've implemented SharePoint. Great solution. But again, it's disconnected from your ERP system and inventory and so on and so forth. So, it's a great step, but we can do better. So we're going to jump into NetSuite and take a look at how we can set up a basic bill of material, and then do some things with that are realistic to real world situations. So we're now in NetSuite, and as you'll see here, we are in the latest release 2016.2. NetSuite has 2 releases each year, and you're automatically brought onto the latest version. You get an advance notice of when your upgrade is going to take place, and have a release preview environment available to check out the new version before you get upgraded. And it's a very seamless process, and definitely keeps you up to speed with all the latest features and functionality within NetSuite. So we're looking at the latest release, which is actually rolling out this week to many of our existing clients. So we're going to go ahead and create a new bill of materials, a new assembly item. So I'm going to go in here and create a new item. And I'm going to create an assembly bill of materials. So for our example here, I'm just going to give this a very simple name and call this assembly 1. And we're going to kind of do a minimal setup of this. I'm going to set a unit of measure of each. And we're going to assign it to our manufacturing subsidiary. So the instance that we're using for our demo today has multiple subsidiaries within it. It's the one world environment in which we can have multiple legal entities operating within a single instance. Great functionality if you have a holding company or multiple legal entities in your corporate structure. So we're going to set this to an average costing method. And we're going to go down and we'll give it a description on our Costing is good, and we'll give it a description at the top. Assembly item for demo. And let's go down and really get to the meat of what we want to talk about here and take a look at our components. We'll set our preferred location to our San Francisco. And let's take a look at what components we can add to this bill of material. So I've pre-created a couple of components that we'll add onto here. So part one, we're keeping this really, really simple. And I can select in NetSuite here of where I want to source this item from. Am I going to source it from stock, or I'm going to go buy this? So in this case, I want to say I want to get it from my inventory. I need one of them. And over here, I have an effective date. So I'm kind of backfilling data. So I'm going to say this was effective in January 1. And I'll add that part. Now let's go ahead and put part 2 on here. Select part 2. We'll do that one from stock as well. And that was effective 1/1. And I add part 3. And part 3, let's say I want to buy that every time. I don't keep these in stock. I'm just going to buy them whenever I need them for a work order. And that was also effective as of 1/1. So in the simplest fashion here, I've set up my bill of material very simply and easily here. I've kind of just set up where I'm going to source these items from for my manufacturing process, and I've set some effective dates. So let's go ahead and save that. Oh, I missed one field. Let's do tax schedule here. Okay. So I'll go ahead and save. It'll give me a confirmation message here that our new assembly item is saved. Confirmation item saved successfully. So I've got my bill of materials in there. Now, at this point, everyone can see that. Who has access to NetSuite can see that bill of materials. Now my engineering manager has said, you know what? Next week on the 12th, so Monday, we need to start using this new part. The .1 part, part number 2 is getting changed. There's a rev on it. So let's go into this assembly and address how we'll handle that. So if I scroll down here and look at my components, and part 2, engineering manager says is getting superseded with something starting next week. So I'm going to go ahead and say, well, part 2, when is this going to be obsolete? It's going to be obsoleted on 9/11. Okay. Well, it's getting replaced by something else. So let's go ahead and insert that, and we'll do our part 2-1 is the new rev. And we're also going to get that from stock. Well, actually, if it's a brand new part, we probably got to order that. So we'll set it up as order right now. And effective date starting 9/12. Okay. So as easy as that, we can control when a particular part within this bill of material is going to stop being effective, it's going to go obsolete, and when the new one's going to become effective in the future. So we'll go ahead and save that record. So that's our simple example of our bill of materials. Obviously here we could have a multi-level bill of materials where you've got sub-assemblies within there as well. But for the sake of our demo today, we're just keeping it very simple and straightforward so that we can demonstrate the base functionality and usability there. So let's go back into our presentation here. So what about raw material requirements? So you've got your bill of material set up. You've got an order to build something, or maybe in your forecast you've determined you're going to do a build, you're going to do a work order and build some stuff. How do you compute all that stuff up? Currently, it's a challenge, I imagine. You're going to break out some spreadsheets. You're going to cross-check to inventory on hand, back to your bill of materials, and some of you may have rather nice Excel spreadsheets. But let's see, key thing is, what do I need and how many? And then when do I need them? and how can I place all these orders? You know, you've got materials from multiple suppliers. How do I get this done a little quicker so that my buyer or my supply chain manager doesn't spend an entire day trying to issue purchase orders for a single work order? So we'll go ahead and jump back over into NetSuite. So here we have our assembly and our bill of material. So we're going to go ahead and open a work order. We're going to create demand for this assembly. So we have an order. So we're going to go down to manufacturing, enter work orders. And I'm going to select that manufacturing subsidiary that I was working with. And my assembly I'm going to build is assembly 1. And let's build 10 of those. Okay. So we can see now down below, it is given us our material requirements. I need part 1, I need quantity 1 of those, or at quantity 10, 10, 10, and 10 on parts 1, 2, and 3. But we had done in our last little work, we had said, well, this part is getting obsoleted, that part 2 is getting obsoleted and being replaced. So let's take a look at when's manufacturing actually going to start their work. If we go back up here and look at production start date, we know they're not going to start today. They're not going to start till, let's say, the 15th. So if we put in production start date as the 15th, and now go down and look at our items that are required for this build, you'll notice that part 2 got replaced with the part 2.1 because that part 2 was going to become obsolete on 9/11. So NetSuite is smart enough to understand where that obsolescence comes in relative to our production start date. And you also notice on our line items level, we go over to the right here, is that you'll see the first item is coming from stock, the other 2 items are to be purchased. So we're going to go ahead and save this work order. And if you recall there on our line items, we had said there's two items that needed to be purchased. So if you notice here, it's taken us to a processed order screen where I can see my original work order number here in the center, 394, and I've generated some processed orders, purchase orders here for my materials. And we'll drill into one of those purchase orders here and take a look. So we can see that this part 2.1 down here, we had already preset up the item, its vendor being Merlin, and we needed part 2.1, and we needed 10 of them ordered. And we also know that this was created from our work order here. Everything's linked back together. So we've very easily created those purchase orders. Now, if we go back and look at that work order, what I'm going to do is go to my recent records screen up here and go back to the work order. If I look at the work order, I can see that my part 2.1 and my part 3, if I go over to the right here, I see both of them had purchase orders issued to get those materials. But this last one says I'm supposed to get it from stock. And if I go over and look here, under back ordered quantity, I have 10 back ordered of this part 1. So we still need to order this part 1. So I could take this information I see here and go manually create a purchase order. Not going to be very efficient. I could click the special order button here, but there may be times when you have multiple work orders open at the same time, so you want to consider your material requirements as a whole. So let's go to Transactions, Purchasing, our Order Items screen here. And I apologize, I have one thing I noticed didn't get set right. I want to make sure I get a location on this work order. We're going to build this in San Francisco. So let's go to Transactions, Purchasing, and I want to order items. I need to order my items for this. And I'm going to consider just my San Francisco location here. And if you notice this section here, we have time phased and reorder point. The particular items we're using are set up as reorder point. If we're using demand planning, that would be our time-phased items. So if we go over to reorder point, you'll see that I've got some requirements here for part 1. To order from Merlin, I've got a requirement for that. So from here, this Merlin, I know I need this part 1. I can simply check the box here. I could choose to increase the quantity. I could modify the price. This price came from the item record, the default price that we're going to pay to Merlin. I could also change the supplier if I wanted to. So let's refresh this and go down to part 1. So part 1, I've marked it. I'm just going to order the 10 I need. And I can choose up here, I can choose this PO to be printed, to be emailed, or to be faxed. So we'll go ahead and just create the PO here. And so it's going to start the process creating those POs. We'll go ahead and refresh. And it says it's complete. We can look at the purchase order, and we can see the purchase orders were generated for the part number 1, quantity 10. So that's been ordered. Okay. So with that in mind, we're very easily able to source materials for our manufacturing orders, our work orders. So what about the idea of managing multiple locations? So kind of looking at the map here, maybe you're an organization that deals with Walmart. So you've got offices in Bentonville, you've got offices in Denver, you've got a warehouse in Reno, a warehouse in Chicago, and Atlanta, and you need to move material. How do you manage that? How do you even know what's in each warehouse? So that multiple warehouse. Perhaps you have a sales organization, independent sales organization up in Canada that's you consign material to. Or perhaps even potentially more complicated, you have a contract manufacturer in which you need to supply material to, or you have consigned material. Consider, you got multiple scenarios you could be looking at. So let's take a look at some of the key functionality around with NetSuite in being able to manage those multiple locations. So in NetSuite here, we're going to go ahead and look at an item here, and we're going to pull up that part 1, and I'm going to use the global search box here. So part 1 we were looking at previously. I'm going to go ahead and open that up and take a quick look. So part 1, if I scroll all the way down here and look at my inventory levels at locations, I can see San Francisco, my San Francisco QA hold location, my San Francisco receiving inspection. I've got a Boston location. Oh, Boston's got some on hand here, 100 units. A Boston contract manufacturer and Boston Overstock, as well as some other locations here as well. So I see here that I've got Boston has 100 units available. Certainly from a supply chain perspective, before I order those materials, I would probably want to look at my requirements and what I had available at other warehouses. It may not be cost effective to ship those materials from Boston to San Francisco. In some cases it may be. With demand planning and the added functionality of distribution resource planning, you can set up material routes such that you can instruct the system to create planned transfers of material for you with that added functionality. Today, it's a little more advanced topic. Today we're just going to look at the process for manually moving those materials and how that would work for your organization. So in this case, we've got 100 of these in Boston. Let's move some of these over to San Francisco. So we're going to go into transactions for inventory and enter a transfer order. So we're going to do this for our manufacturing company. And with many transactions with NetSuite, you have the ability to choose the status. Do you want someone to have to approve these? Do you want them to automatically be approved? So in this case, we're going to go ahead and set this, because I'm in admin role right now, I'm going to set it to approved, already pending fulfillment. So we're going to pull this inventory from Boston, and we want to send it to San Francisco. Okay. If we go down here and select our item, I'm going to go ahead and just start typing that in. It gives me the type ahead filters there. I can easily select my part. And I'm going to set a quantity of 10. In this case, I can, if you were transferring material between different countries, say you had a warehouse in China and one in the United States, you would need to be able to produce some customs paperwork, a commercial invoice. So you can put in a transfer shipping price, which can be used to be printed on a commercial invoice here. Wouldn't affect your GL impact necessarily as far as your inventory value transfer, but used for shipping value. So we got 10 of those on there. We can set a ship date. Let's say these guys are going to ship this out tomorrow, and it's going to take a few days to get there, so we'll put the 15th. And we'll go ahead and add that line. So let's go ahead and save this transfer order. So this transfer order is sitting here at a pending fulfillment state. If you're transferring materials, you need to be able to produce a packing slip. Definitely going to be a requirement. So let's go through the process of doing so. But before I do that, I want to show one other thing. Let's go back and look at that part 1 item. So I'm going to hover over this, and I'm going to click to open in a new tab. And if I go down and look at my purchasing and inventory now and look at my locations, I see I still have 100 in Boston because I haven't shipped that material yet. I still have 0 in San Francisco. But let's scroll all the way. So our top line is San Francisco. Look all the way to the right here, and I can see I have quantities on order now. So I issued a purchase order for 10, and I've also got that transfer order for 10 as well. And then if I look down here, this is my Boston location. I can see I have 10 of those committed to that transfer order to move them from Boston to San Francisco, and I've only got 90 available. So real-time availability of what's going on with that inventory transfer. So let's go in here and click Fulfill. So this would be something your warehouse would do. In this case, the warehouse in Boston would fulfill this. You do have the ability to put your package information, choose the shipping method, ship this UPS, FedEx, whatever, and have the standard integrations within NetSuite to manage that for you with regards to FedEx, UPS, and USPS functionality to be able to produce your tracking numbers and waybills. So in this case, we're not going to add any of that information. We're going to keep it simple. And it's at a status of shipped. We do have the ability to use the functionality of pick, pack, ship. We've set it all the way to shipped automatically. And let's go ahead and save this. So if I print this now, I'll have a packing slip that I can put on my box recording the materials that are moving between the locations. So there you go. We have a packing slip. Would be showing our materials, this one that's shipped. So at this point, it's been shipped. At the other end, your receiving department in San Francisco would need to receive this now. So if I go back to the transfer order and look at its status now is pending receipt. My receiving department in San Francisco can now receive it. And just mark that marked line. We're receiving the whole quantity, and go ahead and save that. Now if I go back to my item, and I'm going to go ahead and refresh in my browser window here, so I reload the record and go down and look. So I now have 10 on hand in San Francisco. I have 90 in Boston. That transfer has occurred and my price, I had $1 cost, unit cost in Boston, that same cost has carried over to San Francisco. You do have the functionality in item receipts to consider landed costs as well. So if you had some additional landed cost you wanted to put into that transaction and reflect in your inventory, you could do that as well. So moving back into our slide deck here. So costing methods. If you're on a legacy system, a basic system that's been running your business for years, you may be limited in what your costing can be done. If you're not entirely managing your inventory in any sort of ERP system, costing may be your best guess. Really, what does my inventory costing look at? Anybody's guess. So some of the costing methods that people will want to use would be average costing, and NetSuite's got that covered from functionality perspective. LIFO, FIFO, that perpetual sort of costing, yeah, NetSuite's got that covered as well. And probably most applicable to many manufacturing operations would be standard costing, and certainly NetSuite has that covered as well. So I want to speak to standard costing a little bit. Due to our time constraints today, I'm not able to go through a full demo of standard costing functionality. We'd probably need an hour or more to do so. But standard costing functionality in NetSuite gives some good capabilities to be able to have different standard cost versions and standard costs per location. So if you were building materials in Mexico and China and here in the United States building the same product, your cost to build that is going to be different in those locations, so you'll want to set that differently. You may have scenarios in which you're a seasonal business and your cost varies dramatically based on the season. One of the examples, if you had a line that you were consuming considerable amount of natural gas in your manufacturing process, and we know that natural gas gets more expensive in the winter. It's more costly. So considering that, you could have a cost model, a standard cost version that you would use and apply at different times of the year to different locations, where you could accurately, have your planned cost considered. So like I said, we're with our time constraints today, we're not able to really get into a standard costing demo. If you are interested in standard costing functionality in NetSuite, my contact information will be at the end of the presentation, and this presentation will be available on our website as well. So you'll be able to reach out to me, and I'd be more than happy to have a conversation or set up some time to discuss it with you. So one of the key things with any of the smaller manufacturing requirements is it may be most effective to use contract manufacturing, outsource that. Certainly with many of our most recent implementations, businesses we've been working with, it's probably about a 50-50 split of people that are using contract manufacturing versus manufacturing in-house, or a mix of the two. So really from a contract manufacturing perspective, we really just need to put it all together. So in contract manufacturing, we're going to need to put some of that functionality together of what do we do in our bill of materials, how do we make that, extend that to really consider a contract manufacturing scenario, how do we set up our inventory locations to manage that, how do we issue our POs, so on and so forth. So with that in mind, let's jump over to NetSuite again. So we're going to go back to our assembly item that we're working with. So from my recent records, I'm going to go down to my assembly one. So in looking at my assembly one, now my business has decided, you know what, we're not going to build this in-house. We're going to subcontract this manufacturing process out to someone else. So with that in mind, I'm going to have to pay them to build it. So let's go down to my my components here, and I need to add in a line item representing, I'm going to do the contract manufacturing. So let's edit this and go to our components. And I've pre-created an item in the system, which is assembly 1 build fee. So I've got a build fee that I need to do. And in this case, I know whenever I need to build one of these assemblies, I'm going to need to issue a purchase order to my contract manufacturer. So I'm going to choose to issue purchase order here. And we need one of those, a 1-for-1. An effective date, well, we just decided today, so I'm going to do 9/8. We've got to start doing that. So there's my build fee. And I'm going to go ahead and say, well, we've got all this stuff now coming in stock. We've changed our supply chain. Now we're stocking all this stuff because our business is doing so well. We don't want to have to do that, so we'll simplify that. We've changed some things up in this, and we're going to go ahead and save. All right. So we have now modified our bill of materials to include an item that represents our the fee that we're going to have to pay to get this assembly built. So let's open another work order. So manufacturing, enter work orders, and we're going to select our manufacturing subsidiary, assembly 1. We're going to set this to be built at San Francisco. Now, in our case here, we would likely have this built at our contract manufacturer. For the sake of simplicity here, we're just going to do it at the same location. So if you notice here, we have, our parts 1, 2, 3. We are still at a current build date of today, so that new part hasn't come into effect. But we know a contract manufacturer is not going to build this for a while, so let's put this out a couple weeks. Now we know they're going to use the new part 2.1 down here. And it has the assembly build fee in here. And we have it set up to issue a purchase order, which is great. So if we save this, it's generated our purchase order. If we look at that purchase order, there's our purchase order to AL Systems Limited, who is our contract manufacturer, and we're giving them this purchase order for the assembly build fee, and it's costing us $5 a piece to have this built. And again, it's linked all back to the work order. Okay. So let's go back to our slide deck here. So there's considerable additional functionality available, applicable to manufacturing operations, and due to our time constraints today, I wasn't able to show all that functionality. So certainly demand planning, taking a look at your demand and from various sources, either imported or through sales order history, open sales orders, so on as quotes, and then generate supply plans. What do I need to build? What parts do I need to order? Distribution resource planning, that comes into, goes along with our supply planning for demand planning. That would give you the ability to decide what locations you want to build at, what locations you buy things, what locations you transfer. Intercompany processing. In our demo here, we looked at the fact that we had multiple companies. We looked at that briefly, and you could see from that perspective that you could have automated sales order, purchase order processing between the two if it was needed. Serial lock control, standard functionality in the application with the right modules that you can serial lock track your materials. Scheduling perspective, we did some very basic scheduling of doing work order start dates, but obviously there's more to that than that. Rough cut capacity planning. So if you are in the manufacturing scenario, you have multiple lines to be able to look at your capacity planning. In-process logging, if you have line 1, line 2 in your manufacturing operation, log actual time, log downtime of machines, all that goes into running an effective manufacturing operation. Quality assurance, if you were logging test results at completion of manufacturing runs. batch processing. If you make burritos, frozen burritos, you know your mixer can only hold so many pounds of material, so you need to split it into batches. And then a planning board functionality. So there's lots of additional functionality available within the application that time prevents us from really digging into these areas. So coming back to the idea that NetSuite is your unfair advantage, agility. You can react swiftly. This is real-time information. It's all in one place. You can make those decisions quickly. Productivity. We saw great ways of taking care of that supply chain, how to quickly see information, issue those purchase orders, see the demand for materials, and create those purchase orders, and sometimes with really no interaction. We didn't show the email functionality today, but you have the ability to automatically have those purchase orders emailed out as well. And then transparency. Really, it's that unified architecture, see anything, anywhere, anytime. So these are some of the metrics here, and there's a lot of information here, but you can see in various areas in the business. I'd encourage you to download the presentation and take a look at some of these metrics. And again, this is a survey of NetSuite customers and what they have, feedback they've given as far as performance increases in their business. From a manufacturing perspective, production efficiency improved 50 to 80%. Inventory carrying cost as a percentage of revenues reduced 2 to 5%. Obsolete inventory cost, carrying costs reduced 60 to 80%. That's just phenomenal, right? Be able to really get a hold of your inventory. So we've got a little bit of time left for some questions. Let's look and see what we've got here. We had one question, is there a limit to the number of locations you can set up? No, there is not. You're pretty much open to, you probably have some practical limits behind that, usability limits, but there is no limit there. You can also have sub-locations, which can be very useful to logically organize your system. So a question about, and I answered this already a little bit, I need to send materials to an overseas contract manufacturer. Can NetSuite produce a commercial invoice for custom purposes? The answer is yes. So from the item records, you can set your HTS codes, your harmonized tariff, harmonized codes there, and you can pull those into those packing slips or onto the transfer order itself, and fairly easy to modify the printed version of that to have it look like a commercial invoice and show the necessary information to provide with your shipments. Great easy way to handle that. Another question was, how does manufacturing functionality work with intercompany? So certainly from a demand planning perspective, that's going to give you your most value when we talk about intercompany. And if you have one manufacturing company and the other company is your distribution arm, you would set up your distribution company to buy materials from your manufacturing company, manufacturing set up to manufacture materials, and you have some automated functionality to be able to create a purchase order in your distribution company saying I need to order this, and in the manufacturing company you would be generating a sales order to supply it to the other entity. So some great ways to work with that. Let's see, just check with the moderator here if we have any other additional questions. All right, so definitely appreciate your time today. Like I stated, feel free to reach out to me with any questions, or if you'd like to review any of the additional functionality we're not able to demonstrate today. My contact information is available here on the slide, and we do have another session also with NetSuite this afternoon, 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific time. So if you're interested in that session, please take advantage of that information. I'll be talking about some of the professional services automation functionality and services resource planning functionality. So if you're a project or a services type business, or you're considering expanding into that area, I welcome you to take advantage of that session this afternoon. So once again, thank you for joining us today. Appreciate your time spent with us here, learning about the NetSuite manufacturing solution and how it's to run for Advantage. Thank you very much.